Good morning and welcome to this conversation on NFV. Today with us we have Steve Shaw, the Product Marketing Director at Juniper. And this conversation is part of a report on NFV and the ecosystem, how it's developing. And Steve, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks for having me, Monica.
So to get started, can you give us a brief introduction as to what is the approach at Juniper to NFV?
Well, Monica, Juniper wants to be an open NFV platform. We think it's going to take more than one vendor to bring together this entire ecosystem. We want to build an NFV platform with open building blocks, taking advantage of technologies like OpenStack and open source environments, and really set a foundation for service providers to take advantage of the power, the agility, the value creation that's going to come from NFV.
Yeah, so you talk about all the different building blocks. Can you tell us about what are those building blocks and how can you help operators to achieve their transition to NFV?
Certainly. Juniper has 3 layers to its NFV platform. Of course, Juniper is a hardware supplier. We've got a high-performance line of routing and switching platforms, which really help service providers build high-performance telco-grade data centers for NFV, for IT infrastructure. That layer is called MetaFabric, and that's something that Juniper's been pretty proud of for a couple of years now. Moving up the food chain a little bit in terms of orchestration and control, Juniper, of course, has its Contrail, SDN, and NFV controller, which really brings a layer of network virtualization and SDN directly into the data center. Provides a much more powerful and scalable approach to managing virtualized environments and really setting up customized service chains, the ability to really craft exactly how each subscriber uses the network by sending traffic routed through different services and really bringing together all of the automation under an OpenStack umbrella. And then finally at the top, or at the services layer, Juniper has started virtualizing our own network functions. So we do have our own VNS, virtualized network functions, top of which is Firefly, our virtualized security appliance, which provides firewall and security capabilities built right in. We also have virtualized other security appliances, including our DDoS. Mm-hmm. We're really looking to round that out with partners in this space as well to be able to bring together a full ecosystem for our customers and our service providers.
Yes, so why don't we start with the MetaFabric, the sort of at the bottom. So this is a product that you already have, and it's also available in a virtualized form. So is this basically to help operators to have a smooth transition where they don't have to switch over in one day? Is that what you wanted to?
MetaFabric is an extensible data center fabric architecture. So it's designed to start small, grow big, really designed for taking advantage of an x86 architecture and providing a very broad switching platform. On the routing side, we have protocols built in to really handle connectivity between data centers, different data center architectures. If you're using a VMware or OpenStack data center, we're able to bridge those technologies through the routing environment and really lay that foundation for service providers to build their business and build their data center architectures on top of.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about Contrail? Because then that sort of sits on top and helps operators to manage the traffic.
So what we see is that the old sort of IT approach to managing networks inside of a data center architecture isn't cutting it. Via virtual LANs are just limited, don't have the scalability, don't have the performance, the security that I think service providers are looking for. And so Juniper acquired Contrail about a year ago now. Contrail brings a virtual network overlay to the data center. So rather than looking at things like VLAN appliance pools, we really treat everything as a direct network connection. We bring high-speed or high-performance telco-grade routing protocols directly into the data center. IPVPN connectivity, built-in load balancing, and a whole range of analytics that help service providers really see what's happening from a networking perspective inside their data center.
Yeah. So what is that operators can do differently when they have this virtualized infrastructure? What is that they're gaining from it?
You know, the big power that comes from this is service chaining. So if you think about today, a service provider of any type, a mobile, cable, a fixed provider, might have a set of applications that they provide to their customers. Maybe it's some kind of traffic shaping, security appliances, maybe some video optimization. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult for them to steer traffic based on subscriber type or based on device type two different appliances that make sense for what the subscriber's trying to do. It's very, they've got one big pipe and basically everything runs through it. With technologies like Contrail and some of the new routing protocols that Juniper is bringing to bear, we're able to really get in and tailor the user experience to really understand exactly who you are, what device you're using, and then use Contrail to set up different paths through the network. So if I'm a Juniper employee, I get routed through the service provider network one way with added security and extra enterprise capabilities built in. If I'm a prepaid MVNO customer, maybe I have a different security or service path through the network. Or if I'm watching a video, I make sure that I run through the high-performance video compression algorithm. Those abilities to do that traffic steering and set up these service chains with all these virtualized network environments is critical for helping service providers differentiate and actually add value to their customers. And that's really where we're seeing the power of Contrail and the Juniper architecture in general. Yeah,
absolutely, and that's very important because that's really a key challenge for operators. But in order to do that, you need to be really deeply and very effectively integrated with all the different elements, for instance, OSS and BSS. How are you doing that?
Well, under the heading of our open approach here, everything has RESTful APIs and the ability to really plug in at any level that one of our partners would like to. So Juniper has teamed up with a couple of companies at the higher order already. About a year ago, as part of our Contrail launch, we announced integration inside of IBM's Smart Cloud Orchestrator product, where they're providing sort of the high-level orchestration and service management components really plugged into our NFV platform. One of the other companies we've done some work with is Nokia. We announced a partnership to build telco cloud technologies with Nokia back in May of this year. And we've got some new stuff coming with Amdocs that we actually brought out at Mobile World Congress earlier this year, where Amdocs is providing the higher level orchestration and OSS BSS and really connecting again into our virtualized service orchestration and NFV platform. So we provide really exactly what that customer is looking for. If they want to do a cloud CPE service, if they want to start to automate their GI LAN, if they want to look at other enterprise managed services, we're able to now plug in and use the power of the OSS system and the integation with the BSS to really drive a complete solution for the service provider.
Mm-hmm. So do you find that with NFV, you find yourself working more closely with partners than
Certainly. I mean, I think the idea that one company is going to be able to deliver this whole thing soup to nuts, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different technologies. I think the power of NFV and the power of virtualization is the ability to quickly bring on third-party applications, third-party virtual services, and orchestrate them in and automate them in and help the service provider run through new capabilities, new features, grow existing capabilities much more quickly. I mean, the key word there that we've all heard is agile. How do I be more agile in how I build my network, how I scale my network, how I automate my network?
So does it also mean that mobile operators will have more vendors, or that their relationship with their vendors is going to be different?
I think there's still going to be that idea of somebody has to sort of orchestrate, manage, deliver the entire solution. But the ones that I think they're going to win are the ones that are going to embrace sort of this open approach, embrace other companies being able to collaborate and really build out that ecosystem. I mean, today there's a handful of companies that provide X service or Y service or Z service. I don't think we're ever going to get to a place where it's like, the iTunes store where there's tens of millions of apps. But if we can move from a world where there's 10-ish apps to hundreds of apps, where the door really opens for companies to get creative about how the services they can develop for the network, and we can start to provide that innovation pipeline for the service providers, and we make it easy with an NFV platform, I think this is really a renaissance opportunity for the service provider community.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's move to the applications. As you said, there are going to be many applications, and you're bound to support them all, but you also develop your own. So the security is an area that you have selected. Why do you select security?
Security is so critical. I mean, time after time and survey after survey, one of the big barriers for companies, service providers, enterprises alike, at adopting cloud is the concern about security, the potential threat of really managing the experience for their customers and for their data, that sort of thing. Juniper provides a very solid set of security appliances today. We've got a great firewall for data center architectures, that sort of thing. But by virtualizing our security applications, we're able to help service providers now insert security into exactly where they want it. So if you want to wrap your DNS server with a a DDoS prevention firewall application, we can do that. We can drop that in and have it literally target a specific service or function within your network. Technologies like Contrail and OpenStack help orchestrate that and make it simple and automated to do. But by virtualizing, we're able to really target security in to the elements that need it, at the places they need it, and help service providers add a second or third layer of protection to the network that they might not have had previously.
Right, and also I guess that it's also in a time domain. They can deploy resources when needed rather than have them 24 hours a day. So it gives you a little bit of a cost savings and again flexibility to manage potential attacks, right?
Exactly. And then in a virtualized environment, you're able to quickly upgrade software packages and really start to talk about zero-day attacks and how you can prevent things right off the bat.
Yeah, and I guess for security, that's even more important than anything else because time is absolutely crucial. Now, another crucial thing is to make sure that your network is reliable. And there's nothing new really, but in a virtualized environment, how do you measure reliability when, typically you measure the reliability of a piece of hardware?
Right.
And now you can, but that's not enough. That's not sufficient because one piece of hardware can fail and then so how is that changing and what do you do in this area?
Well, certainly this is a bit of a shift, I think, for the industry in general, where reliability was really built in at the individual appliance or box level. What Juniper's providing here is an NFV platform, and so we do look at reliability, system availability, high availability at the system level. Some components have, device and blade and box level reliability, but really the vision here is to build in system level reliability so that things can, if an x86 server fails, there's nothing catastrophic. Another instance can spin up, traffic can be redirected, load balanced across a pool of appliances. We can have geo-redundancy at the system level as well. So if things happen in one area or the other area, we're able to seamlessly sort of adapt the cloud to the underlying performance requirements or performance issues of individual virtualized network functions, connections, physical lines, all that sort of stuff. In our architecture, this was something that was designed from day one to be built into the system, was to really look at it from an all-up system-level reliability, which is much more in line with what we're seeing from cloud service providers today. That's certainly the architecture that a Google or an Amazon takes and what they're trying to do. And it's certainly going to be a critical factor as we talk to our telco customers who are definitely asking those same questions.
No, absolutely, and I guess it also it brings the question of reliability and network performance in line to understand the quality of experience. Right. And quality experience is an end-to-end type of measure. It's no longer does this piece of the network work or it doesn't. Right.
One of the key things that we're looking at doing is starting to tie together the virtual network and the physical network. So we've got tremendous amount of analytics coming out of the physical network. Contrail on our OpenStack platform has a tremendous amount of analytics about the virtualized network. Who's connected where, what flows are going where, what kind of performance we're seeing there. Really the next step is to tie those two bits together. So if there's a failure, you can see, oh, is it just the VNF that failed, or is there something wrong at the switch port that failed, and start to look at correlation between that data to really help the technicians and the network operations department monitor and effectively respond. But the goal is to have a lot of that really be automated and simply provide sort of more detailed, more pointed explanations to what's going on in the network.
And that's very important because right now the operators oftentimes they have all the data sitting there, but it's one thing to have the data and being able to use it in an effective way. And this way they can also learn, optimize their network. It's a huge learning experience in there. And that brings another topic that virtualization. It's a great technology breakthrough, but it also changes the way that operators work internally, their culture, the way they do things, basically.
Sure.
How do you see that working out? Is that slowing down adoption, or is it an opportunity for operators? How do you see it?
Certainly a huge topic of conversation with pretty much every customer I meet with, and certainly a lot of the feedback we're getting from the field. I think there's a conversation happening in the service provider community between the IT department, which has traditionally run the internal systems for the service provider, the enterprise services, that sort of thing, and the networking side of the house, which is really looking at how to leverage the power, the benefit of virtualization to become a more agile service delivery environment. We see different companies going different ways. I think a lot of this is still up in the air. One of the big shifts we are seeing, though, is this really a migration, it's certainly in the network side of the house, to much more of an open stack, open environment, and much more of a DevOps style of programmability, specifically within the network and network functions virtualization, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Juniper's done some research in this space. We partnered with a research house. We've put together some material on it. I think you'll start to see some stuff coming out from Juniper on this as we go forward through the year.
Yeah, so and specifically, operators are more used than other IT players to have proprietary everything. Everything is proprietary from the interfaces, and so the whole IP environment, it's new stuff for them. And open source, it's even moving one step forward. Do you think you're comfortable with that?
I think. The pendulum definitely swings back and forth, right? I think the pendulum has certainly swung to much more of an open side of the house. I think what you're going to see is that sort of settle into more of a managed open environment. Somebody's providing a packaged open source or an open stack environment or a packaged open environment that's sort of quasi-open and sort of structured in such a way that the service providers can certainly use it. Because, yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be the wild, wild west. I mean, at the end of the day, the network is the business for the service providers, and therefore they're going to have to deliver that level of reliability. They're going to have the systems in place to be able to do all these things. And frankly, I think the mobile service providers have as much to, or even more to gain by moving to virtualization. I think the GI LAN environment, which there's a lot of talk about virtualizing EPC, virtualizing IMS infrastructure, that sort of thing. That's a fairly straightforward process. I mean, let's take what we've got and move it on. I think in the GI LAN, what we're going to start to see is this move away from physical appliances to much more virtualized environment, and now an opportunity to start to drop in, as I was talking about earlier, new services, new capabilities, new customization opportunities where the service provider can actually start to drive value. This is much more like a pure IP environment. It's a little outside the domain of the 3GPP. And I think this is really where we're going to start to capture some value for the service providers and help them really drive the benefit out to their consumers. So people actually see at the end of the day, hey, my network behaves differently because of this technology. And that's when I think we're all going to benefit.
Right. And do you see any difference in the type of reception you get from operators in different geography, different size operators?
Everybody's moving at a different pace. And a lot of times it's competitive pressure. A lot of times it's, I think LTE, is an interesting cross section of sort of what we're seeing from the marketplace itself. One of the statistics I like to throw out is something like 82 or 83% of the mobile of LTE subscribers in the world are in Japan, Korea, and the US, right? While there's a whole slew of LTE networks out there, the reality is only a couple of places have really rolled up their sleeves and jumped in. I think the same applies in NFV. A bunch of companies came out and said, hey, we're targeting this, we're ready to go, we want to start building it in. There's a lot of activity, a lot of planning that's happening. We're hearing a lot of a 2020 vision type plan or a 2018 type plan. How does the network evolve over the next 3 to 5 years to take advantage of this? A handful of companies have been public. Telefonica, very public, their CTO about how they're going to virtualize some 30% of network functions by 2016. AT&T rolls out their Domain 2.0 vendor program, which Juniper is proud to be a part of. So there are some companies that are really taking a stance and saying this is something that's going to happen, and we're going full force into it. A lot of other companies are saying, hey, I got a lot of other problems on my plate, and as the technology matures, we'll get ready to do it.
Now, in terms of what's going to be virtualized first, how do you see that developing? It's going to be a long process. We know that. So what do you think is going to be the roadmap for most operators?
In the mobile space, I think it's clear technologies like IMS, technologies like EPC are the starting points. And I think there's two elements to that. One is a lot of mobile providers are still growing, right? we're starting to see the move to VoLTE, so IMS has become more and more important. EPC capacity and subscriber growth continues to be there. If they can grow their network more quickly, grow their network more cost effectively using virtualized technologies, that's a great place to start. Let's get started there. The other thing that's happening there is they're really starting with a virtualized version of an existing physical appliance. So it's not that I'm putting in what Juniper and a lot of other vendors sort of consider their nirvana, where everything is fully automated, and it's sort of like George Jetson. If you remember George Jetson, he would sit at his desk and all he would do is push a button. In a fully automated environment, his job was the button pusher. We can envision a world where everything is fully automated and services spin up and down and subscribers are managed and all that sort of stuff. We've got a long way to go. So step one is, instead of buying an EPC in a standard rack, I buy an EPC software and I run it in a rack of x86s. Next step is start to add some SDN, start to add some automation that goes around that. And these steps will take time, absolutely. But we're starting to see that the first step with NFV, virtualize these network functions. Next step, bring in something like a Contrail or an orchestration system that starts to automate some of that process.
Yeah. And so in closing, what should we expect from Juniper moving forward? Where is the next directions you're going into?
I think you're just going to see the ecosystem get bigger. You're going to see us continue to really push the idea of a high availability, open NFV platform. We're in conversations with a whole bunch of companies in the service orchestration space, in the virtualized network function space, in the partner space, in the service delivery space, and really start to beef up Juniper's platform and the value that Juniper brings in terms of our complement of NFV and how we really interact with the entire ecosystem to bring this value to market.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. This sounds very exciting, and we're going to certainly be busy for the next 5-10 years, even though we never really speak in that. In the 10 years in telecom is always a long time. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today.
And thank you.
Thanks. And this is part of a report on NFV that it's available on our website at www.senzafiliconsulting.com. Thank you for attending.